So today, what we're going to be covering is we're talking about the DocumentsCorePack service, and we're going to talk a little bit about performance utilization and service logs. Basically, a lot of you looks like that you guys use DocumentsCorePack. You may be familiar with the service, but there may be some things that you look at on the service that you just don't know is actually there. So we kind of want to bring those to your attention and give you some ability to kind of use the service better and administrate the service a little bit better. So the first thing that I want to talk about is actually how does the DocumentsCorePack service work? Okay, just to give you a general idea of how it works. So basically what we have here is we have these three Dynamics 365, Power Apps, and PowerAutomate. Using those and using either just a workflow or the DocumentsCorePack dialog or the DocumentsCorePack connector, you can create document requests, right? And those documents requests are then picked up by the DocumentsCorePack service. That DocumentsCorePack service that you guys have takes the information from Dynamics or the Dataverse and turns them into, like, say, for example, a Word doc or a PDF. These are normally the main two that we see that people are doing with it, but there's a couple other options that you can do as well. But these are just basically the main two. After that, after it creates that document from the template, you can do it. Also handles like the post processing, like so pushing it back to the Dataverse, say for example SharePoint, or sending taking that PDF and attaching it to an email and sending it, or attaching the Word doc to a note or printing it, etc. Also, via the DocumentsCorePack connector, you can push this stuff back to PowerAutomate and use the whole suite of PowerAutomate, connectors in there to, maybe push that document using Office 365, or push the document to a Dropbox, or again, you can use the SharePoint connector in there to do things with it in SharePoint that you weren't normally able to do. So that is basically how the DocumentsCorePack service works, right? So the important things here in the DocumentsCorePack service configuration, there's three basic things to it that you kind of need to know. There's the setup and configuration portion, the performance and utilization, and the logs. So for the setup and configuration, that would basically consist of connecting and authenticating. How is this document, since it's a kind of a service that sits outside of the Dataverse, how do I connect and authenticate to Dynamics, to the Dataverse? I want to kind of go over some key settings for you today, show those. Talk about an API key. The API key is crucial if you're going to use the DocumentsCorePack connector with PowerAutomate or Canvas apps. How do I get that? Also, how do I look at my license? How do I look at my license count details? Template management. How do I manage my templates? Things of that nature. Performance and utilization. This is probably the most underused portion of the DocumentsCorePack service. So we just really want to bring that to your attention. Some of those things might be usage reports. Okay. Talk a little bit about the performance. How you're going to see, how your documents perform, how the document process is performing. That's either with document statistics or template usage. You're kind of able to see that as well. Also, lastly, is load balancing. What is load balancing? How does it work? And when do I want to use load balancing? The last piece is basically service logs. Where do I look to see server statuses? How do I stop and start the service? And then lastly, debugging. Basically, that's how, like, if I have an issue and I need to send logs to the support team here, how do I set that up? How do I get that going? It's pretty simple to do. So a couple of the main topics we're going to be covering today, as I already said, the API key. Why do I need it? Well, if I'm going to use Power Apps and Microsoft Flows, and I'm going to use the DocumentsCorePack data provider, DocumentsCorePack connector, sorry. Got that a little confused. But, and basically, the DocumentsCorePack connector requires the API key to talk back and forth between the connector and the DocumentsCorePack generation service so that it can access the information in the Dataverse into, in Dynamics or via Power App and Flows. That's how it communicates. So that's really important to know. How do I get that API key? So we're going to cover that today. Talk a little bit about licensing, to verify your license count. A lot of times in support, we'll get emails saying that, hey, my DocumentsCorePack service is stopped. Well, one of the first things you want to check usually is your license, right? So be able to check your license, and also like who is counted under licensing and why they are counted, why we're counting them. So it's a really quick and easy interface to see. Lastly is to be able to assign and remove template designer licenses. How do I do that? The next portion is template management, talking about template management, exporting and importing of templates. When do I want to do that? How do I do that? The other thing that's a really nice feature is moving templates between orgs. Why is that a nice feature? Well, a lot of you out there have a dev system that you develop your templates in. Well, you want to then, after you've done that, you want to say move those templates to a UAT, a UAT or to production. But if you have you're able to actually like move those templates back and forth using this little thing. You're able to move those templates between those organizations with a couple easy clicks. Lastly, one that I feel is greatly underutilized and should be utilized by everyone is automated template backups. And basically what we're doing here is we're automating it so that you pick the number of days. Say, for example, every 7 days, all your templates are zipped up and they're backed up to a blob storage folder, right? And if you think to myself, well, Clint, I don't have a blob storage folder, I don't have blob storage, more than likely you do. You may have not have looked at it yet, but it's relatively easy to set up, and we'll kind of go high level through that. Talk a little bit about also performance and utilization today. Document statistics. A lot of people don't know that you can actually go onto your service. You can look at this. You can see the total duration of time that it took for it to create a document from start to finish, from the time that someone clicked that button to the time that that document shows up in SharePoint or shows up in an annotation or gets emailed off, how long that actually took. Also, total duration, not to be confused with document creation duration, but how long it actually takes to create that document. Those are two separate things. Usually this is really fast. One of the things that we usually see, and this is a good reason to know this and know where to look, is some of the probable causes that you got long document generation times. See a lot of people out there with a lot of large pictures. You're putting pictures into your documents, a lot of large pictures, a lot of unnecessary relationships and data. What we mean by that, we'll kind of show that later. And then also sub-templates. If you have a document out there and the document has 3 sub-templates, you got to remember that that's 4 document generation jobs that have to happen, right? Because each one's separate. So you have your main document and then your 3 sub-templates that also have to be generated. So that could be some possible causes to a long document generation, and we want to kind of help you to kind of see where those are. The document save duration is another thing. Some of the causes for a long document generation, long save time, would be, of course, large files. Again, that goes back to the large pictures that we see. Large files will cause that save time to basically astronomically go up. Bad connection. You can have a bad connection. Like, say, for example, if you set it up and you're set up and you don't have a good connection from to the service, from Dynamics or from the Dataverse to the actual service. One possible thing that we can do to remedy that is, we can move the services, because we have servers basically in a bunch of different Microsoft data centers that are strategically located so that you can have these faster document generation times. And lastly, another thing that we see a lot is SharePoint issues. SharePoint is notorious for slow upload times, right? So I've had a situation where one person, their Dynamics instance was on the East Coast, US East Coast, but their SharePoint was on the West Coast, and they were wondering why it's taking so long to save stuff to SharePoint. Well, if your service and Dynamics is on the East Coast and your SharePoint's on the West Coast, that took a long time to upload those documents to SharePoint, and that was of course remedied by moving their SharePoint instance to the East Coast data centers. Lastly is the template utilization, being able to identify unused templates or being able to just check and see, within the last 500 to 1,000 templates or 250 templates, what are the ones that are being used the most. It kind of helps out. You can kind of like go through that and look at that and see your template utilization. Want to cover a little bit about load balancing, kind of gets you familiar with that term. So basically, again, you can see, we have Power Apps, Dynamics 365, and PowerAutomate send a document requests. Well, normally when you start out, you only have one service. So one thing that you have to think about, as you're setting this up, well, how many documents am I going to be generating? How many people are going to be generating documents at the same time? The best example that we have is, let's say we have 5 people that all fire off a document generation at the same time. Well, the service works on these one at a time. And while the service is relatively quick, let's say that the document takes, say, for example, 10 seconds to finish, to complete, right? And all that time the service is working. So by the time that it gets to the last person, that person's already waited 40 seconds for their document to generate. So it can cause long document generation times, right? And the way that we handle that, or the way that you can handle that, if you see that that's happening, is you can do these load balancing services. Now there is an extra cost, but it's relatively nominal. And what you get with that is you get 5 load balancing services, right? The thing to note about it is we'll kind of go into that in more detail once we see that in the configuration. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but you'll have basically 5 services to work on all those documents. So then basically all these documents are generated very, very quickly, and it basically minimizes the wait times. The whole other thing is that this is also scalable, right? So I say that it's 5 services. That's just the starter. That's usually what you get. And just to think about it with the scalability, we have a customer that generates 3 million documents a year, so roughly 6 documents a second. And they're able to actually use 5 load balancing services to handle all this, right? But then again, another customer is doing documents that are about 800. They're doing about 800K documents a year. Basically, this is a lot of people in sort of like in a center that are just processing documents over and over again. So they're firing off a lot of document jobs at the same time. So what we had to do is we had to scale them to 20 services so they could handle all the document jobs that were coming in at the same time. So they generate a lot of documents simultaneously, right? So this whole thing's scalable, and we'll basically work with you to get you the right set amount of load balancing services that you need. All right, so moving on, today in the demo, we're going to do a step-by-step walkthrough, talk a little bit about the service setup, the things that I showed in the service setup, the configuration options, and the service logs, okay? So let me just kind of flip over here and show you how you kind of get to this in your Dynamics system. So I just have Dynamics open here. What I want to do is go to Advanced Settings, and once I get to there, it just takes a little bit of time to get there. It's always the same thing, when you're trying to do a demonstration for everybody and you want it to be nice and snappy. It never is. So here we go. So from here, from our advanced settings, we'll go to Settings, scroll on over here to our mscrm-addons section, go down to our DocumentsCorePack. Okay. 6 docs a minute. What did I say, Michael? Did I say something different? Okay. So anyway, we're in here. Once we get to our DocumentsCorePack settings, here on the main page, we can hit the Configure Service button. Just wait for that here. And then what I have to do is I have to go ahead and log in here. So I'll log in, give it a brief moment. And then what I get here is I get this particular view here. Now, for the things that we want to do, this is great because, you know, you can quickly see, hey, my service status, it's running. This is how much data I've done a month. This is how, you know, what instance I'm on. But here, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and hit this classic view. Okay. Once you hit the classic view, it brings up the information here that you need to actually work with the service. So now, just so everyone can see it, so everyone's not squinting, I'm going to actually, let's see here, move this over to this screen right here. So it's a little bit bigger so everyone can see. So it's basically the same view that you're seeing. A couple of things that are a little bit different in here. But, you know, it's the same view that you're actually going to see. You're going to have pretty much all these buttons down here, except for these last two. But so first things first, what I want to go into is talk a little bit about configuring or actually seeing like the service logs, right? So that's the most important thing. If your service is stopped, one of the first things you want to do when you're kind of troubleshooting this and trying to figure it out, come on in here, select your service, and go ahead and view those service logs. Okay. These service logs here, there's a lot of information in here. A lot of the things you'll basically, you know, probably won't understand, but if you do have an error or something like that, it will say it in there. This is the best thing to do to kind of see it. It may say that the service is stopped, etc. It's good to kind of take a look at this. The service log kind of lets you know exactly what the service is actually doing. Okay. But if you have like some error messages, you'll see over here the little error message. You can take a screenshot of that and send it to us in your initial contact with us when you're having issues. That helps us a lot and helps us from having to ask you for it. Okay. So this is basically where you're going to see all this information for your particular service, all the logging, the service logs and everything like that, the service health, what it's actually doing, etc. Okay. That being said, the next piece of information that you can look at here is your version information, right? So if I click this little particular button here, I can see my version information right at a glance. It takes just a second. It pulls down the version information of the DocumentsCorePack service itself, and then all the information for the solutions that we have installed on the system. Now, one of the nice things is once this actually comes up, you can see on this particular server, this is the latest version that is available to you. And here's your installed version. As you can see, all the versions here that are in yellow are not the current version. So I do have the ability to update it. So I can update that myself at any time. It just takes usually, I think the maximum it takes is about 20 minutes usually is what we found to update this. But also the other thing to point out too is if you're this one right here, this particular, the DocumentsCorePack Server Core solution is actually the most current version. So I'm going to see those in green. So if you pull this up and you see everything's green, you know you're on the latest version. If you see yellow, you're not. So usually if you're having some weird problem or something like that, where you've had like Microsoft send an update or something along those lines, it's really always good to kind of check here under this version information and make sure there's not a later version that you can upgrade to. And usually those later versions will fix a lot of the problems that you have. So really good to kind of know this. Just hit that button and you're good to go. Next, after that, the version info, the next important thing here is licensing, right? So I can come over here to my little key, view and install licenses, and this is where we see like a majority of the problems, a good amount of problems that occur. You maybe you know you've added a few new users and you forgot that, hey, that's going to end up breaking DocumentsCorePack. That's usually a lot of times what we see in support when someone's added users and they've forgotten to check their DocumentsCorePack license. So I can see here the license information for the DocumentsCorePack server, and then for my client-based or my my template designer. Now, again, the template designer is a per user license. I can see here under my license value that I have a grand total of 2 licenses that I can assign to users, and here under the system value, I can see that I have assigned 1 license. So that gives me 1 more license that I can assign to someone in my organization. How do I do that? Just come right up here where it says please click to select the users which should be assigned the DocumentsCorePack per user license. Just click there. Gives me a list of all my users in my system. I can select here another user. So I'll select Michael, and then I'll just say apply. And then it goes and it applies that that license to that user. Simple as that. Again, I can go in and take away licenses and give them to other people. That's the beauty of a per user license. You know, that I can just assign it to whoever I want, take it away from someone, assign it to someone else. So whoever's designed your templates, this is where you're going to go. The next important piece here is this user tab. Basically, what this user tab will do for you is it gives you some information here about, you know, your version, your Dynamics version. This is all very helpful to us if you see that. And then you can see down here, you can see the list of full license users, the relevant roles, and the unrelevant roles. So this is where you're actually going to see here, like, for example, you can see here that if any user has any of these roles, we count them as a user, as a DocumentsCorePack user. So any of these roles, basically. So this tells you that if the user only has one of these roles, we don't count them, okay? Or also if a user has 0 security roles, we don't count them against your license. You can actually see, you can come in here, you can see really quickly your users that are actually on your system, and you can see what roles they have assigned to them, okay? So you can see here, okay, this person has these particular roles. This is really helpful if you're, you know, you don't have to hunt through Dynamics to kind of look at this. You can actually just come here and say, oh, does this person have the relevant DocumentsCorePack security roles? They have DocumentsCorePack security role. They have the AutoMerge security role here, and they have the mscrm-addons general security role. So they're good to go. So it's really, really helpful. Also, another thing that we see a lot is that, you know, someone creates a team in Dynamics and then assigns everybody to that team. Well, you know, as we all know, that if you're a member of a team in Dynamics and you inherit the security roles of that team, therefore your user has a security role, therefore you're counted against the DocumentsCorePack license. So this is really helpful to come in and kind of see all that, get a good picture of it, and just kind of like go over it, you know, just in case you have any license problems or your license counts off or something along those lines. All right. So that's a really handy tool that we have. The next piece that I want to talk about is kind of going into here and taking a look at the document statistics, right? So it's this little piece right here. We can say view doc statistics. And basically what this does is it goes in and it grabs the information that we've logged for your document generation, what you have in there. There's a lot of information in this, a lot of troubleshooting information in this. I'm going to show you the things that you just really need to know and look at, right? So once it goes ahead and pulls that, the last 250, we can go ahead and take a look at that. Well, okay. So again, it's the latest 250. I can set this to 500. I can set this to 1,000. I can look at all that kind of stuff. I can see here the latest documents that were generated. Okay, a couple of things that are important, you know, like if you're having a problem with a specific template, you know, it's really, really simple to do. You can just come up here and use this group by template functionality. So once you click that, it goes through that entire log, groups everything together via the template name. Okay, so that's really, really helpful to do, especially if you're having problems with a certain template. You can do this. You can go in there. Also, really important to kind of note is that you can also get a good idea, a good count of how these templates are being utilized. We don't have an actual report that tells you what templates were utilized and everything like that yet. But right now you can go and you can get a good overview, say like in the last 250 documents that were generated, 27 of those were this 2021 quote email. Okay. So you can have a good idea. These up top here, multi-part, null, you can ignore it. These are like back-end things, like a multi-part document. A multi-part document is when you create several documents and you merge them all into one document. But basically, you're just here, you're looking for your document, your template name, and you can view that. So we can open one of these up. So we can see here that the entity is it's for a quote, template name, you know, these are one of two of the columns. The created on, when it was actually created, it's another column you may want to have to take a look at, and that helps out. Then the most important piece are these three columns right here: total duration, create document time, save document time. Okay, pretty obvious what they do. This basically tells me how long it took it to create from start to finish. When we stopped working on it, how long did it actually take? This next column is how long did it take to actually create that document once I had all that data together? How long did it take me to put that document together? The other piece is how long did it take me to actually save that document to where it needed to go, whether that be SharePoint, whether that be back to Dynamics, etc. All right. So here, basically the total duration. Now these numbers, they look really weird, but of course, we're programmers, and these are milliseconds, right? So the easy conversion to go from milliseconds to seconds is move this decimal place over 3 spaces. So you can see that this first document here that I've highlighted took roughly about 2 seconds from start to finish to create. Okay. It took half a second for it to actually create the document, and it took about half a second for it to save the document. Where's all that other time going? It's time waiting. It's querying Dynamics. It's getting the data back, all that kind of stuff. But these are the main 3 that you kind of need to focus on. So you can see, you can go down here. You can see this particular document, and this is really good. So you can get an average create time on this. You can detect anomalies. You can kind of go through this, and you can see, this document roughly takes most of the time about 2 seconds to create, right? So this is really, really helpful when you're actually, you're putting all this together. When you're looking at this, if you can see issues, if there's some anomaly in here, like this document's taking 14 seconds when it normally takes 2 seconds to go. If it's a one-off, that may just be a small connection issue. But if you see that, okay, over the last, let's say I got this out to the last 1,000, and I look at this, and if we're going by percentage, the last 270 of these items, the last 10 of them have been, the time duration to create the thing has been like 14 seconds, but normally this takes 1 to 2. That may mean that you have a problem. You might have some kind of connection problem. If you have some kind of connection problem, look here at the save document time, see where that is. Or it may be something here with the service. Let's create document time. This is going to tell you, this is mostly going to tell you, say, I find it issues with the service or issues with the DocumentsCorePack generation. This is normally going to tell you if it's like a connection issue between SharePoint or Dynamics or something, if your connection's slow or not. So it's really easy to kind of look at that. You can kind of take a look at these numbers, and that will help you out. Just to kind of give you a little example, I've done a document here just to kind of show this. This document is pretty much the same thing. It's just one image in that document. The difference is the large image doc, that is a 15 megabyte image. So one 15 megabyte image versus an image that's that I've shrunk down the resolution. So this is like I don't know, I think it's a 8K or a 12K resolution that I have on this, and I shrank this down to 1080p, right? So the 1080p resolution. You can see here the major difference, right? So same picture, just different formatting, right? This document that's large, 15 meg, it took it just to insert one 15 meg image. It took it 17 seconds to do that. To insert the 1080p image, which is about 800 and something K, it took it 2 seconds, or 80K. I'm sorry, it's like 80K or something like that. I'm not sure. No, 800 and something K. That's right. It took it about 2 seconds, right? So you can say hey, I'm never going to be inserting 15 meg images into my documents and things of that nature. Well, some people do. And also another thing to point out, that it's really easy if you have a lot of images in your document, it's really easy to hit that 15 meg threshold, right? I've seen it happen. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind, so the more images that you have in there that are large, the longer it's going to take for it to do it. The other thing that's important to know is that I see a lot of people, and this may be something that you want to do, go back through your documents in the DocumentsCorePack template designer. This is maybe something that we might do in the future. People are interested in it. But a lot of people, when they're creating documents, they'll create a relationship and they'll be like, oh, this relationship from, like if I'm doing a quote to the quote products, this isn't what I wanted. This filter's not correct. I'll just create another relationship. Okay. And they go on and they get it right. And so they have all these quote product relationships in their document, right? And they never go back and delete the ones that they didn't want. Well, that's all cool and everything like that. But, when you go to merge the document, we're still going to perform those fetches, even though you're not using that data whatsoever. We're still going to perform those fetches and we're still going to get that data back from Dynamics. So that's going to bloat your document. It's also going to, take a little bit more time to do. One good example is I had someone who had just started out using DocumentsCorePack. They were really excited about it. They did something. They did their relationship was incorrect, but this relationship was actually pulling back every single product in the system, right? And they weren't using that relationship at all. They knew that they'd made a mistake, but they didn't go back and delete it. And they were wondering why. Hey, why is it taking my documents so long to generate? Well, that fetch that we're doing, we're still pulling back all those documents, every single product in there, and keeping that information in the document. So you need to, it's a good idea to go back and get rid of those old relationships. Also, the other thing is to take a look at your relationships and only use the fields that you're wanting to pull back, right? That slims it down. It just makes the document lean, and you can achieve quicker create times. So I hope that's a little bit helpful to y'all. Just remember the most important things: group your things by template. You get your template names, and then you can see here your template names, the entity name that you're working with here, and then your total duration, your create document time, and your save document time. That's really helpful. All right. Last but not least here, let's see here. I went to this. The import export of DocumentsCorePack templates. I'm just going to go ahead and bring that open here. It's a little bit backwards, but I'm going to do it this way. First, I'm going to start with export, right? So if I click this export button, basically what it does is it goes in and it gives me a nice, lovely list of every single one of my templates in my system, right? So I can take, for example, here, for the account, I want all the general templates. Select those. Let's go down some of these test ones. I want these two. I want to export those as well. So you can pick and choose which documents, which templates you're actually going to export. It gives you the little thing here. I click that, puts them all in a zip, gives them to me, right? This is also a great way to kind of, if you're not going to do the backup thing, you can just select every single one of them, download it. I'm telling you right now, it's a good idea to do something like this, especially if you've never done it. Go right now to your service and download all your templates and store them somewhere. All right. The reason that I'm saying that is because all these templates are actually stored in Dynamics. Okay. They're stored in Dynamics under DocumentsCorePack, the DocumentsCorePack template entity records. They're attached to the note. And one thing that we have seen, we get this, probably 2-3 times in a 3-month period, we'll get this where someone has wanted to save space in their Dynamics system, and they've done a bulk delete on all notes, and they wonder where their DocumentsCorePack templates went off to. The record's there, they're able to select them, but it throws an error. Well, it throws that error because you've deleted the template from the note and it's gone. So it's good to have a backup of these because you never know what could happen. Usually there's a lot of hands in Dynamics, and it's good to have your templates backed up. One thing is, once I have that zip file, right, I can actually choose just a docx or that zip file itself and just quickly import it. Just hit the import button, choose a file, or I can just drag it over this and it'll import the whole thing. Okay. Last but not least, and this is the coolest one, is transferring templates, right? So you can see up here, I have 2 different systems here, 2 different systems that I'm an administrator of. let's say that I do all my configuration here of my templates here on the US demo. Now I want to import them to the REST demo. Basically what I can do is I can select that, hit the transfer button, just as I did in here before, select which templates I want to transfer over there. So you can do like one at a time, etc., or several at a time, send them over, and you just hit transfer, and they're transferred from one system to the other system, right? It's a really handy way to do that instead of, you know, having to like open your DocumentsCorePack template designer, save the template, connect to the other system, upload it. You know, here you're just straight transferring them. It's really easy. Last but not least on here, then this is pretty, like, again, very, very handy. The template backup to the Azure blob. This setup here is relatively straightforward. We do have a good blog article that basically will guide you through it step by step, but you just enable the template backup. You say that, give it the interval, okay? And then you have to create in your Azure blob, the blob storage, the SAS URI or URL, okay? And you have to paste that in there, save it, and you're good to go. Every day, right, as I've had mine set up, we set this up yesterday, so I have something to show. But basically what it does is I can look here at my template backups. You know, I don't have to go in the Azure blob. And you can see here that last night that this template backup was done. I can download that zip file. It has every single one of my templates in there. I can take that zip file, come over here to my template management piece here, and import that right back into my system. So that's great. You know, if someone's accidentally deleted, you know, done a bulk delete on notes, I grab my templates from here and import them, and then everything's good to go. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is load balancing. As you can see here, I've got two. You can see here, this one says load balancing, right? So I go ahead and click that open. You can see here, this is my master service, my master load balancing service, and these are the subordinate services for my load balancer. To configure this, we're just basically going to hit this configure load balancing button here. It's relatively straightforward. All right. And then based on my license, how many load balancing services I bought, it'll give me this information in just a moment. Excuse me while I take a drink. All right, great. So you can see here in the load balancer configuration, it tells me my available load balancing services that I have is 8. Right now, I have it configured to only use 5, right? You can change this how you want, you know, so how many load balancing, but it's always good to maintain the 3 load balancing services. And I'll tell you why in a second. Okay, so here I have 5. The next one, this is probably the most important one, right? So this says reserved for single documents only, 2 services, right? So basically there are 3 different ways that we can create documents, and this is how we define them. A single document creation would be, I'm a user, I click the DocumentsCorePack, I'm on a record, I click the create document button, and I create a single document. You know, that's the single document. That's processed by a single document service, which is what I have 2 of, right? The next one that we do is what we call a bulk merge, which is like, for example, I have a grid view of all my accounts, and I want to send them all a blast email. I select them all. I hit the create document button. I set everything up. And then for all of those 200 records, an email is sent out with an attached PDF or something along those lines. I'm sending a bulk job of 200 jobs to the service, right, to complete, right? Lastly would be workflows, right? So we all remember workflows, you know, PowerAutomate as well is very similar. But we have document jobs that are generated by workflows. So we have 3 different types of services. Now, this is why I said, how many would you like to configure? 3. We always say we give you 5, but 3 is like the minimum to have. I always say do as many as you've got. But so basically, the way that we set this up is 1 service is always reserved for workflows. So you're going to have 1 service that's always like working on workflows. Now, your bulk merge and your your single document generation that's where you basically configure this. So basically now if I have 5 of these, one of them's working on workflows, that means I have 4 services left over. So I've got 2 of them that work on single document jobs and 2 of them that work on bulk document jobs. Okay. And that's the way that works. So basically if one of the services, if I send a job and Michael sends a job and a bunch of other people in my company send a job, then what it does is this master service is basically going to look at the 2 services here and say, okay, you are, you're getting this particular job, you're getting this particular job, etc. Once I have this all configured, I would highly suggest testing it in a live environment where all these people are using it so you can adjust accordingly, right? In order to do this, when I'm configuring this, all I have to do is set apply. What it then does is it automatically then creates these services for me, right? It takes about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the amount of services you're creating. Creates them all for me. And then if I hit, say, for example, the document statistics on the master service, it's actually going to show me all documents that were created on every single one of these services. But if I actually want to go ahead and drill down here, I can sit here and view the document statistics on the one particular service, and it's just going to show me those. I don't know why I clicked this because I'm going to have to wait for it. But you get my drift, right? So you can see just all the individual documents that were created on this service. Also, you get a quick, nice overview of how this thing is spreading these things out, right? So we've, here on my 2, these are my 2 bulk merge. It usually goes like your single merge is first, then followed by your bulk merges. So I have 1, 2, these are my singles, these are my bulk, and that's my workflow. So you can see here how much data it's actually using, okay? Speaking of that, that's another good thing to know is everyone always wants to know how much data they're actually using per month, right? So let me see here. I got to find that. I hardly ever do that. You can actually view this data usage report. It's very, very rudimentary right now, but it at least gives you a breakdown of, how many documents everybody's creating per month and what, how much bandwidth you're actually using. Unfortunately, I only have this one because it's a relatively new service that we've created. But it will break it down. As long as you've been using DocumentsCorePack, it will break that down over time, and you can actually see how many documents have been generating it. We've had users that have been using this for 3 years, and they can go back and look at all this kind of stuff. Finally, we're getting to the point for all the PowerAutomate and the Power App users, how to get that API key. Okay, when you're setting up the Documents CorePack connector, it asks you for an API key. How do I get that? It's easy. Come in here, you click your service, click this button, say get API key. You wait for a second, there's your API key. That's what you have to put in there in order to use the Documents CorePack connector. Pretty easy, okay? Very, very simple to do, but that's where you get it. This little piece causes a lot of headaches sometimes. So this is just on where do I find this, right? So it's in there. You can obtain a new one. You can revoke this, etc. But you can get that API key for this particular service here. Lastly, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That was a little bit long, longer than normal, but there's a lot to cover, and I hope you guys were able to take it all in. A couple little things on the roadmap, as you saw, utilization charts and automated monthly reports. That's something that we're going to want to be bringing in, and basically just setting that up to where, when you're looking at it and you see, hey, so you're not having to convert milliseconds to seconds and things of that nature, hopefully do that for you, make things a little bit nicer for you to take a look at. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I want everybody to stay safe. It's really funny because, it's been a year as of today. This is the first day that we went home and haven't been back really since to the office, sort of. Everybody working from home, but I still continue to stay safe. We're almost done with this, I'm hoping, fingers crossed. Again, you can find us on the web at www.mscrm-addons.com. Help Center, we've got that's just easiest way to do that instead of me reading the URL is go to our website, hover over support, and you can select from there where you want to go. And then we have a new a knowledge base, a lot more organized. You can find out a lot of cool stuff there. Also, you can find version history. Very, very important. You can now find version history there on our website. In fact, I'm so proud of it. I'm going to show it. So if I go here, hold on one second. Let me get my service configuration here. Actually, this little link here. For my knowledge base here, you can go to release history. Now you can read up, if you're a couple of versions behind, you can read up on the bug fixes and new features and things of that nature that are released in our new releases, right? So you have a release history now. Yeah. So